The United Nations begins operation of transferring oil from decaying Safer tanker amid high risks. Yemen is remembered pre-war period and economic prosperity during the rule of the late President Saleh. Road accidents claim lives of 13 people in Ma'rib Governorate. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fuad. The UN-owned ship Nautica arrived off war-torn Yemen to take on 1.14 million barrels of crude oil from the decaying FSO Safer. The difficult transfer operation is expected to begin over the next few days, following years of tense diplomacy between the United Nations, Yemen's Houthi rebels, and the internationally recognized government. This report has more details.
On Sunday, a UN-owned vessel arrived off the coast of Yemen to pump over 1 million oil barrels from the aging FSO Safer, a Yemeni tanker. After years of a Saudi-led conflict in Yemen, the Nautica arrived in Yemeni waters around noon. It was getting ready to anchor beside the FSO Safer, a rotting supertanker in the Red Sea. The delicate operation to transfer around 1.14 million barrels of Ma'rib light crude to the Nautica, which the UN has purchased for this purpose, is expected to begin by the end of this week. Despite thorough safety inspections, there is concern of a leak or an explosion. Safer is already shipping 4 times the amount of oil spilled in the 1989 Exxon Valdez disaster off the coast of Alaska. According to the UN Development Program project manager for the Safer, the risk is exceedingly high. He said that they intend to eradicate this risk once the project is completed. During the Yemen conflict in 2015, maintenance work on the Safer tanker was suspended. Because of the blockade's impediments, the UNDP has been warning for several years that a disaster may occur at any moment. However, a large leak might cause an environmental disaster, harm Yemen's fishing villages, and force the closure of importing ports and desalination facilities. According to the UN, the spill, which may cost more than $20 billion to clean up, might reach Djibouti, Saudi Arabia, Eritrea, and Somalia. The United Nations intended to begin the prepping phase in May 2023, during the last week of May, to release around 1.1 million barrels of oil from an aging ship off the coast of Yemen in order to avert a catastrophic calamity. David Gressly, UN coordinator for Yemen, briefed media in New York via video conference that a UN vessel named the Endeavour has anchored in the port of Al Hudaydah on Yemen's west coast. Gressly stated that a UN team will assess the ship and implement safety measures.
But just as a reminder, other factors such as the FSO Safer, any kind of environmental disaster that does represent could equally have a very detrimental impact. So we're working on all fronts to try to protect the system of food security inside Yemen.
If all goes as planned, they might claim that the vital phase of ship-to-ship transfer could take place sometime in late June or early July.
Saudi Arabia and Turkey affirm full support to international and regional efforts to reach a political solution to the Yemeni conflict. In a joint statement, the two countries stressed the importance for the Houthis to positively engage with international efforts aimed at resolving the conflict. The Pentagon announced it will send a missile destroyer and additional fighters to the Middle East. The move aims to deter Iran from seizing ships in the Gulf. This followed the Iranian Navy attempt to confiscate 2 commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman earlier this month. Displaced people remember the pre-war period and the economic prosperity during the rule of the late President Ali Abdullah Saleh. According to them, that period represents democracy, economic welfare, and stability. The following report has more details.
Yemenis are on the verge of a humanitarian disaster they have never experienced due to the war, like displacement, several issues, and in the economy. It was only brought back 9 years ago in February 2011, which dragged Yemen into an unparalleled war and strife, a nation that, before to the catastrophe, wasn't living in a state of strife, despair, poverty, and loss of security and stability. Rather than, there were times of prosperity, stability, security, growth, and dignity.
People buy less than what they need due to the bad economic situation. In the past, 3,000 riyal were enough to buy a lot of food and other stuff. The price of the 20 liters of diesel was 750 riyals, but now it exceeded 30,000 riyals. People wish they would go back to the old days and pray for the former president, the late Ali Abdullah Saleh, because he was wise. Friends and enemies liked him and did not realize his value until he passed away. It is a big difference between the past and now. For example, 15 years ago, 16,000 riyal were enough for hospital treatment, but now even 300,000 is not enough. People used to buy food supplies for the whole month for approximately 7,000 riyal, but now this amount is almost nothing.
The crisis of gasoline, electricity and education, currency collapse and difficulty in moving between governorates are among the issues faced by citizens in Yemen. Corruption destroys state institutions in liberated areas, and the Houthi militia's influence has led to racist ambitions. The government has revealed its dark project and dark approach, highlighting the prosperity that occurs during the rule of martyr leader Ali Abdullah Saleh. The state's features have become a first step towards democracy, construction, development and social justice.
تولى الزعيم علي عبد الله صالح عبر صناديق الاقتراع.
The late President Ali Abdullah Saleh ruled the country through the elections on July 17, 1978. It is celebrated by Yemenis, and one of his achievements is the Yemeni unity, development, economy and infrastructure.
The country is quickly abandoned, leaving lengthy and difficult route that falls short of its goals due to crisis. Given these escalating challenges that assailed them from every angle without warning, a resolution, even if it's imperfect, to residents suffering and halt the pointless conflict that destroyed everything lovely in the nation.
The American Center for Justice said it had received an appeal from dozens of Yemeni families stranded in Sudan. Those families have been cut off from their ways to return to the country. In light of the escalating wave of armed violence in Sudan, the center, which is concerned with human rights, confirmed in a statement that the great suffering experienced by Yemeni families affects civilians and those safe in their homes. Houthi-linked gangs stormed the Bani Hadija area in the Mar Governorate and looted the antiques and historical monuments. Private sources confirmed that the Houthi militia looted large quantities of antiques and treasures from historical landmarks. According to the sources, the Houthi militia, through the so-called General Authority of Antiques, looted large quantities of archaeological stones. In Tamar also, an electrical fault caused a massive fire at one domestic gas filling station. Local sources said that the fire broke out in the southern Ring Road, but no casualties were reported. The sources added that the civil defense teams rushed to the place and were able to extinguish it and besiege the source of fire. 13 people have died in 2 road accidents in Ma'rib Governorate. There has been an increase of road accidents recorded in different cities due to the lack of maintenance. The following report has more.
At least 13 people died in road accidents in 2 Yemeni provinces this week, the latest in a series of crashes that have claimed the lives of dozens of people in the country this year. In the Mar province, security authorities reported 11 deaths and 6 serious injuries when a bus and a truck collided on the main road connecting the province with the capital Sana'a. The incident was described as the deadliest of its kind in months. A video shared on social media showed the covered bodies of the victims and their scattered belongings besides the wreckage of the bus as the first responders called for help. Some comments called for the road to be better maintained and expanded. On Tuesday, 2 people were killed and 1 injured when their vehicle overturned on the wrecked and steeped Hayjat Al Abd Road in Taz. The city is under siege by the Houthis, who control part of the city and have kept key transport links closed for 8 years in their attempts to take control of the city. In addition to thousands of Yemenis killed in direct results of fighting since the war between the Houthis and the government forces began, thousands more have died or been injured in road accidents across the country. The Ministry of Interior released official figures last week, showing that 25 people died and 108 were injured in 273 traffic accidents in the government-controlled areas last month. The Houthis last month said that in the previous 3 months, 344 people, including 51 women, were killed and 2,910, including 567 women, were injured in 1,000 traffic accidents in areas they control.
In Hodeidah, MSM project removed a number of Houthi mines in Hais district. The Director General of Hodeidah Police planted trees in the new field after MSM teams removed mines. Coming next. Houthi attacks on oil facilities compound economic hardship.
In Marib, since the start of the conflict, people have sought refuge in this city, which is in the middle of Yemen. After 8 years of conflict, 1.5 million people are displaced in this city. Though it's close to front lines, it's considered a safe haven. And the people live within the communities and spread across nearly 200 sites. In addition, there are thousands of migrants who are trapped here at the prey of smugglers and living in inhumane conditions. People have next to nothing. They need water, food, good shelters, access to health, education and protection services. The conditions here in Marib are harsh, from hot weather, desert hot weather, to heavy rains that cause flooding. That's why we in the EU are supporting our partners to provide assistance. This includes a shelter that doesn't leak, allows children to access education, women and girls to access health, and provide clean water and food. The situation in Yemen remains very fragile, and it's a difficult living conditions. That's why we must continue the humanitarian response and assistance.
Taiz University organized a symposium on Houthi siege of the city. The symposium discussed three main parts: the damages of the siege on the administrative and economic units, the impact of the siege on the water supply in the city, and then media strategy to internationalize the crime of the siege of Taiz.
Today's seminar is a different one, as it is a scientific symposium organized by Taiz University, and it was divided to three main parts, which discusses the consequences of the siege of the economy. In addition, we are looking for a media strategy to tackle the Houthi siege. The water siege that was imposed by the Houthi militia on Taiz is considered a humanitarian crime against civilians. It affected all people, including the rich and the poor, and its impact affects several issues, including health and economy.
The Yemeni Cultural Center in Cairo organized a book signing ceremony. The book included 6 satirical stories that express the suffering of the Yemeni citizen in the various stages of his life in a strategical form. The signing ceremony was presented by Nabil Subay, Vice President of the Yemeni Cultural Center in Egypt. Houthi attacks on oil facilities have aggravated the economic situation in the country. Such a Houthi behavior made it difficult for the government to assume its responsibilities and pay civil servant salaries. This report has more details.
The problem of declining financial resources due to the cessation of oil exports in Yemen has dominated the discussions of the Yemeni leadership in recent years. Amid concerns about the government's inability to face the inevitable obligations, especially with regard to salaries in the liberated areas and operating expenses. The Houthi drone attacks since last October led to the cessation of oil exports from the ports of Hadramaut and Shabwa, which made the Yemeni government lose the most important resource and hard currency, in conjunction with the decline in revenues from other sectors. Fear of the collapse of the Yemeni economy dominated the meetings of the President of the Presidential Leadership Council, with those concerned with economic affairs and with the Consultation and Reconciliation Commission that was established according to the decision to transfer power in April 2022. While the Central Bank of Yemen struggles to carry out its tasks within the available limits, relying on Saudi and Emirati deposits, the Yemeni rial witnessed a new decline against hard currencies in the liberated areas, reaching more than 1,400 rials per dollar. It is noteworthy that the Houthi group had threatened to repeat its attacks on oil export ports and to target cargo ships in the event that the government resumed the export process, in the context of its attempt to blackmail the government to obtain a share of the proceeds from the sale of crude. The group has so far rejected UN and regional proposals to renew and expand the truce and agree on coordinated steps to pay the salaries of government sector employees, while continuing to seize the resources of Hodeidah ports and the rest of the sectors such as customs, taxes, and communications. The Yemeni Consultation and Reconciliation Commission stressed the need for the Presidential Leadership Council and the government to assume their responsibilities towards the military escalation of the Houthi militia, and stressed that the Houthis will not accept peace without firmness and deterrent measures for what is happening.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations begins operation of transferring oil from decaying Safer tanker amid high risks. Yemen is remembered pre-war period and economic prosperity during the rule of the late President Saleh. Road accidents claim lives of 13 people in Maghreb Governorate. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. See you soon.